So right now there's a lot of uncertainty in the world and the global economy right now. We got multiple active war zones going on. We're in one of them. We got tariffs going up, down, getting ruled unconstitutional, and then coming back up. Then we got tech companies spending billions and billions of dollars and laying off tens of thousands of their employees. Everyone's running out of oil. Everything is getting more and more expensive. I mean, gas is $8 in California. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. And to make things even worse, every major voice in the finance industry or media outlets are sounding the alarms and saying apocalypse, the world is ending, everything's going to dust. But here's one thing that I know for certain. The stock market doesn't necessarily hate bad news. The market hates not knowing. It hates the uncertainty. And that's exactly what we have in the world right now. A whole bunch of uncertainty. And the most watched market valuation indicator just hit 220%, which is way higher than the historical average of around 120%. And each time the S&P dropped at least 20% within 18 months, every single time. And the last time this happened, it was the late 1960s, the dot-com peak in the 2000s, and 2021. And I just want you to pause. I'm not saying this to stress you out, but I am saying this because if you're in your 20s or you're starting to invest, a 20% drop will happen, and it's probably one of the best opportunities to build your wealth that you'll ever get in a long time. And if you don't understand that concept, you're about to make one of the biggest mistakes that will actually hurt you in the long term when it comes to investing. Every time something happens in the market wobbles, the same type of machine turns on. Fear headlines, crash predictions, people moving their money around, they're panic selling, doom posts that turn into doom threads. Everyone just starts to freak out. And it's not because everyone's lying, but because fear is one of the most viral emotions on the internet, and it's how a lot of people and these media outlets make business. So when anything remotely happens that is bad, they're gonna run with it. Just think about it. If something slightly goes bad, the media will instantly turn it into some sort of apocalypse that is 10 times worse and spread it everywhere. That's how they make their money. Then everyone's watching the news or using friends with the person who watches the news has FUD, which is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And misery loves company, so it just spreads towards everyone until everyone's feeling anxious and starts freaking out, panic selling, and doing bad things to their investments. And here's the thing that people don't get. The market is not just this logical place that's ran by numbers and formulas. It's a lot of psychology and human behavior. The stock market moves on emotion as much as it moves on data. It's super confusing and honestly really absurd. The moral of the story is that what you see is not necessarily the full picture. And the people who lose money during these crashes or during kind of times of uncertainty are never really taken out by the crash itself. They usually get taken out by the decisions that they make while they're still in the middle of it, while everything's kind of popping off. They're not prepared, they sell, they lock on the losses, they panic and then freak out, and they have a lot of stress and anxiety. And then once the market recovers, they're not in it anymore, or they didn't take advantage of any dip. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna show you these warning signs and how you kind of get prepared. Then I'm gonna show you why these signals and kind of, all these doom and gloom headlines are not the reason to be scared about. They are a reason to be ready. All right, so here's a quick synopsis of things that is kind of happening right now in the global economy and the stock market. So I'm just gonna give you kind of what you kind of need to know and what's out there. And I'm just gonna walk through this really fast, but I want you to really understand that the market, it doesn't necessarily hate bad news, but it hates uncertainty. So there's a lot of volatility in the stock market. And right now, uncertainty is everywhere you look. First, we have a bunch of active war zones. We still have Russia and Ukraine. We have the stuff that's happening in the Middle East. Then we have a bunch of kind of civil unrest with a lot of different countries, talking about Nepal, even like the Philippines and Indonesia. There's a lot of stuff going on right now in the kind of global economy. And then of course, if you haven't been living on the rock, we've got the Strait of Hormuz. A lot of things happening right now in the past few days. There was a ceasefire, and then now we have a blockade. I'm sure by the time I upload this, there's going to be another new kind of installment to this news, but a lot of things that's not really good that's happening. A lot of war, a lot of oil and supply that's kind of getting kind of messed up. It's a lot of uncertainty. And then we also have stuff with the tariffs. The one that Trump kind of dropped on all of us in April 15th, Liberation Day. He caused a lot of havoc in the stock market, a lot of havoc in just the global economy and the business. And then the Supreme Court kind of struck it down, but then he still has another tariff. And then some companies are also trying to get refunds from that initial tariff, like USPS or Amazon. So a lot of weird stuff is going on right now too. And then you also have the question about the AI bubble. What's happening? Tech companies are spending hundreds of billions of dollars into this AI infrastructure, and some of them don't have that much revenue to kind of show for it. They're just spending billions and billions and billions of dollars going into debt, but the ROI on the math kind of looks a little uncertain. So a lot of people are worried about that. Is AI just another bubble similar to the dot-com bust? And so a lot of people are really, really anxious about that. I for one am too. Then we have a lot of stuff about jobs, inflations, and the Fed's job reports have been soft. Then we have a bunch of tech layoffs. I think Oracle has laid off 30,000 of their employees, which is insane. And of course, we still have inflation, with this kind of sticky. It's not as bad as 2022, but it's not gone. And so the Fed is feeling a lot of pressure with that, especially from the presidents. A lot of things is kind of happening. This government is kind of going crazy. It's not really making it easy for us investors or us people. And then on top of all that, you have all these controversial things. I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to mention it, but you got stuff about the island, the political drama, you have the Diddy situation. There's just a lot of just culture war cycles, kind of like things that are happening in society that is adding just to the noise. There's a lot of just random things happening that is going on. I'm not here to tell you that any of these individually are, catastrophic, but I want you to just feel the cumulative weights of it all. And I'm sure I even missed a few things. And there's also 3 numbers that kind of put a point to it. And the first one I want to show you is the Buffett indicator. And right now it's at 220%. I mentioned it a lot earlier. And the historical average for this is literally 120%. So when things are kind of sky high like that, it usually means things are a little bit overvalued. So stock market's overvalued, the prices are, and that's obviously not a good sign because the market always kind of self-corrects eventually. Everything will eventually return to homeostasis. So if things are overvalued, then that means, deeper crash or maybe another correction is due. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. Not financial advice, but that's just what the numbers show us. And we also see Berkshire Hathaway, one of the biggest companies, this is Warren Buffett's baby. They're actually holding around $382 billion in cash for 12 straight quarters. Now, this itself doesn't necessarily mean anything, but if a company who invests into undervalued companies, as they do, holds a bunch of cash, it kind of has you question, like, why are they hoarding a bunch of cash? Do they think something's going to happen? Do they think there's going to be better opportunities? Let's just hold this cash. That just gives you a little more uncertainty of things to kind of consider. And also historically, the S&P 500 entered a 10% or more correction in 12 of the last 17 midterm years. And we also have prediction markets showing a really high chance of 11+ percentage drop in 2026, and these things surprisingly are pretty accurate when it comes to predicting certain things, and this is kind of just the honest picture, just a lot of uncertainty all at once. Nobody really understands what they're doing, but the one thing that kind of stays for certain is my investment strategy and what I'm doing with my money, how I'm kind of acting when it comes to my personal finance. And I'm not changing a single thing about how I invest or use my money, any of it. And here's why. Real quick though, if you want to start investing, I have a free 5 steps to investing checklist, perfect for beginners, that will walk you through how to build your entire portfolio from scratch, what to sign up for, what to look, and I have my entire portfolio in there. So if you want to check that out for free, I'll put the link in the description down below. All right, I want to show you something because it's really easy to look at the stock market and want to freak out, but let's just take a second and zoom out. This is the chart of the S&P 500 over the past, 100 years. If you don't know, the S&P 500 is basically just 500 the top largest companies in the US stock market. And whenever a company falls off or does bad, another one will just automatically take its place. So it's a self-correcting mechanism. And people look at the S&P 500 as a way to kind of just track the market because these are the top, companies in the stock market. And if you see here, if you zoom out, the stock market generally goes up. Now, there's a lot of different reasons why that may be, but the key concept is over time, it goes up. Even though there's, world wars, you see over here, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and then we have COVID, we have every single kind of like catastrophic or cataclysmic event that's happened that changes life, and people think this is the end of the world or there's like the market's gonna crash. And another concept that I really want you to stick with is that there's always gonna be bad days, there's always gonna be wars, there's always gonna be some sort of pandemic or some sort of crash. These things are normal, they happen, it's predictable. If we look at all the data, we can see here that bear markets, when the market is going down, it lasts around 9.6 months, on average. But bull market, when the market goes up, lasts on average around 2.7 years, right? So, and the reason why I'm showing you this is that it pays well to be a little more optimistic when it comes to investing. And so that's what I really want you to kind of leave with. Every single thing that feels like the end of the world, wars, financial collapses, pandemic, once you zoom out, it's just a tiny dip on that chart. Things will always happen, but eventually, and kind of, since inception, the market does rebound. Now let's take a second to zoom in into March 2020. There's an article by CNBC that reported that how the S&P 500 dropped around 34% in just 33 days. It was honestly wild. From its February 19th peak to its March 23rd, drop. That was like one of the fastest 30% decline in the index recorded history. And honestly, my portfolio looked like it was on fire, but I kept buying. Every single paycheck, it doesn't really matter. 50% of whatever that came in went right straight back into the stock market. And by December 31st in 2020, according to the S&P 500 closing price, the index has climbed over 68% from that March low. Then if we go back to 2022, the same index dropped 25% from its January 3rd peak to its October 12th low. And people said that this was the start of a decade-long slide and we're going to see a lot of flatness or maybe a decline in the S&P 500 or the US economy. However, the S&P 500 climbed over 60% from the October low through 2024. Now that's just like not two random, lucky data points. There are about 26 bear markets in the S&P 500's, history. And since the S&P 500 was created in 1957 at around, 50 points, it has grown to over $5,000 today, more than 100 times higher. And every single bear market in between was a buying opportunity for anyone who stayed in and was, able to invest. And also some of the best companies that built, generational wealth were created during the chaos, during the storm. Uber was founded in 2009, Airbnb launched in 2008, Slack's parent company started in 2009. Warren Buffett once said, "We simply attempt to be fearful when others are greedy, and to be greedy only when others are fearful." Now, he said that in his 1986 Berkshire annual letter. And based on every single DM and comment that I've been getting right now, a lot of you guys are really fearful. You guys are afraid that your portfolio is going to drop, if it's the right time to invest, what if the market keeps crashing? And so according to this framework, Warren Buffett, this is exactly when you want to be in the market and to be investing, not running away from it. And so here's what I'm actually doing right now with my money. I always automate weekly buys into VTSAX. It's just like a mutual fund version of VTI. It just covers the entire stock market, and I had that ever since I started investing, and I will basically never touch that. I will always have that, until I retire. But I am doing something new. I'm adding a lot more international exposure to my portfolio through an index fund called VXUS. I've realized ever since this crash that I am very, very tech heavy. And in the past, I was okay with it because I'm young, I want growth. But as things slide, I'm realizing I should probably be a tad more diversified, not just in tech, because when tech went down, my portfolio really hit it. So I'm working on adding more, international exposure to my portfolio. And I'm also holding a little more cash than usual, but I have a kind of good excuses, I guess. First, I want an emergency fund. Everything's kind of happening right now. I rent right now, so I kind of need money in case, things hit the fan even worse. But also I just want more money stacked up in case there's any more buying opportunities. But also I have to pay my taxes, which I just paid today. It's April 15th. That was way too much money. So now I don't have that much cash anymore. But regardless, my strategy has really stayed the same. I'm still investing. I'm still dollar cost averaging. I'm not panicking, but I'm also not throwing all my money into the stock market. I'm being a little more intentional just because I have a lot more expenses. And also I don't want to have that stress and FOMO of trying to, always pick the right stocks and be at the right time. I kind of just want my money to be working hard for me, and I don't really want to think about it too much. And that's kind of my strategy. And it's kind of been working out. And I will say this before we get into the playbook. Over years of doing this, I realized that the best return on investment that you'll ever make, the best thing that you can invest in, is yourself. It sounds cheesy, but seriously, in your skills, your business, your own knowledge, in your own happiness, you will always be the best investments. The markets will all recover. Yeah. Investing is super important, of course, but compounding your own capabilities in your own life, well, that is always worth it to me. All right, I basically have 4 rules when it comes to investing and what I do with my money, and I don't really break them no matter what the stock market is doing, no matter what's happening. So rule number 1 is to have an emergency fund first. And this is probably one of the things that most people skip because it's boring, emergency, they want to live life on the edge. But it's one of the exact reasons why people get forced, out of the stock market or forced into credit card debt, even worse, at the worst possible moment. And the importance of having an emergency fund is obviously in case any emergency were to happen, a car repair, medical bill, or a job loss, maybe you get laid off or anything. Nowadays, you sneeze the wrong way, it's $500. So if you don't have that cash cushion, then most people will either be forced to, sell investments to cover, especially if you have to sell some stocks, you saw the bottom, you lock on a loss, then the market recovers, 6 months later, and now you're on the sidelines and you didn't really take advantage of any of that growth. And the reason why it's so important psychologically to have, emergency fund is because it allows you to, 1, stress less, but also feel more comfortable taking more risk, which I really, encourage. I encourage people to take risks. And this is because subconsciously that you have an emergency fund. If something were to happen, you'll be okay. And just having that knowledge that you'll be okay if anything were to happen, well, that makes, a big difference. And I usually keep my emergency fund in a high yield savings account just so it pays me a little more in interest. If you keep it in any of those big banks like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Chase, you'll get 0.1% in interest, which is literally nothing. But if you do in a high yield savings account, which will give you anywhere between 3% to even as high as 4.2% in interest, well, at least you're making passive income on your money, or at least when you go against inflation, you're fighting it off. And so in the high yield savings account, I usually put around 3 to 6 months of my living expenses in there, or maybe savings for any other savings goal, like a down payment on a house or for travel. But any savings is not in my regular bank account. It's all in my high yield savings account, so it earns interest and it protects my money from inflation. This step always comes first. You really want to make sure that your bases are, covered before you go on kind of the offense. And so before you invest, before you make your brokerage contributions, without it, rules 2, 3, 4 don't really matter. One bad month will break the entire system and have you in debt. And that's what we want to avoid. Rule number 2 is to automate it. A lot of people make mistakes when it comes to investing and lose money because they just get emotional and they sell or they don't invest when things dip. So every pay period, every single month, every single week, money goes out of my bank account into the stock market no matter what. I set that up when I first started and I have it running, for years, and I'll never stop it. Again, I said it once and I don't care if the stock market's up or down, my money is getting put to work. And again, the real reason why this works is really simple. When you're manually deciding every single week or every single month to invest while the market is either going up or going down, your brain will always find a reason to maybe wait or not invest. So automating everything removes that decision entirely. And so for me, again, my core position is VTSAX and VOO, which gives me exposure to, hundreds of different companies in the US stock market. And so every single week, money goes out of my bank account again into there without me having to touch and lift a finger. And then rule number 3, and this might be a little weird, is to focus on increasing your income. It doesn't matter if we're in a market recession or whatever, figuring out how to increase your income should always be like one of the main priorities when it comes to building wealth. And that's because, investing is cool, but you can only invest how much you save. You can only save how much you earn. So a lot of people don't like to talk about this. They only talk about investing, but the most important part about investing is having money in the first place to be able to invest. And so focusing on increasing your income, maybe through a side hustle, maybe through business, getting more education, a side hustle, maybe I said that already, but somehow where you can increase the amount of money that you make so you can increase the amount you save and increase how much you invest. And that money that you invest will compound you faster and faster and faster. So rule number 3 is always figure out how to increase your income, how to increase your earning capacity. And that is the most important thing you can do on this list. But rule number 4 is to not tinker anything. And I understand when the market's falling, the urge to do something becomes overwhelming, to sell everything, move to bonds, rotate to whatever, drop the lease or just wait, all in cash. However, that urge is really the enemy. There was even a study by Barbers and Odine's landmark study that talked about this in the 2000s, and it analyzed over 606,000 real retail brokerage accounts from 1991 to 1996. And it found out that households that traded the most earned an annual return of 11.4%. Market that year jumped around 17.9% over the same, period. That's a 6.5 percentage point gap every single year from just touching a portfolio too much, from just tinkering around. How many times when the market drops are you looking at portfolio, watching your portfolio go up or either down? It's just anxiety ridden, stress that you don't necessarily need. You can look at it when you're making contribution, you can look at it when you're investing, but if you're not doing it, just leave it alone. Don't try to tinker it too much. It's really not worth it. Just focus on yourself and focus on what you can control. And again, I was not running all 4 of these perfectly the first time I went through a real crash or a real drawdown. I got most of it right and then kind of figured the rest, the hard way. And what is different now is that I kind of have a system of, the automations, kind of, those concepts running in the background without having me to figure out or be brave about. And that's what I'm doing with this video right now. I'm hopefully that you guys learn from this. Hopefully you guys can be okay when the next thing happen. The market may crash again. I don't know what's going to happen, honestly. And the people who get really rich in the crash are never the ones who are trying to predict it. They're the ones who just have a system when it arrived and they're ready to take advantage. And trust me, I made plenty of mistakes on the way getting there. And if you want to see them, check out this video right here. I'll link it right here. And of course, if you enjoy, please like and subscribe. It means the world to me. Till next time.